Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
This is America's Outdoor Talk program.
Are you ready to get rowdy?
Outdoors This Week with your host, Alex Langer. Alex Langer. We've got fishing.
Believe me, folks, I have been there, and the fishing has been tremendous.
Hiking.
Adios. Have a nice trip.
Camping.
This is a real adventure.
How do you know?
When you're an experienced woodsman like me, you get a feel for these things.
Oh, really?
Heck, we've even got kayaking.
I'm going to show you kids the time of your life.
We've got all the info you need for a safe and fun day in the sun.
It's a darn good thing we found you when we did. There's something horrible roaming these woods.
And you've got Outdoors This Week. Outdoors This Week. And now, here's your host, Alex Langer.
Why, thank you, Mr. Announcer. It's wonderful to be here once again. Lynn, how are you?
I'm well.
Are you well this weekend?
I am well. It's a miracle.
Why is it a miracle?
I had what I thought was a cold with a sore throat and ended up with some sort of virus that lasted 3.5 weeks. Yep. Finally, I'm well.
You're good as new.
I am.
You were looking a little down for a few weeks.
Yeah, I was very sick.
I just thought you were depressed.
Well, I was depressed that I was sick.
We have a very special guest with us today. Usually we have quote-unquote fishing pros and people like that here. But Mark Fisher, what a great name for a fisherman. Mark Fisher is a tournament angler, promoter, and he's got a radio talk show. He is the director of field promotions for Rapala VMC Group USA. That's a mouthful, but not only does that include Rapala and VMC, the hook company, Rapala Group has been buying up all these little companies, kind of like Pradco. Not that VMC is a small company or the others are small companies, but they're very large company, very large. Mark is an accomplished tournament bass angler, national, regional, and provincial in Canada. He conducts numerous seminars and is a featured guest event speaker. Mark is radio co-host with National Hall of Fame, another Hall of Fame. All these Hall of Famers.
They're everywhere.
Not just Ron. Ron told me he was the only one. Ron Linder said, I'm the only Hall of Famer. But I guess he wasn't.
Nope.
So he hosts a show called Bear Facts and Fish Tales, which has been on the air for over 18 years. And he's contributed to Outdoor Magazine fishing articles, papers, instructional and promotional fishing videos. He's appeared on TV shows like Linder's Angling Edge, In Fisherman, Midwest Outdoors, Minnesota Bound, Sportsman's Adventures, you name it. You name it, he's done it. And Mark was inducted into the National Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame in 2011 as a legendary communicator. And his professional affiliations include Rapala, VMC, Ranger Boats, Mercury, Minn Kota, and Humminbird. Wow, that's a mouthful. So that's it. And then we have all of our usual guests. I call them suspects, but they're not suspects. Each of the things that we have on the show are its own self-contained syndicated short program. So that's it. I'm really loving the fact that Mark Fisher is here. Stay with us, folks. You'll enjoy it too.
More of America's favorite outdoor talk program, Outdoors This Week, after these messages.
Hi, folks. Ron Linder here for Linder's Angling Edge Television. Yes, we're still playing on the Pursuit Channel. And I'm also here for Seafoam, the gas additive for all your stuff that you put in the garage. If you got a cylinder index, you put Seafoam. You put it in your car, you put it in your boat, you put it in your ice auger, and in your lawnmower if you're storing it away for the winter. Okay, I have a news release in a local paper here. It probably doesn't mean much in Chicago or Des Moines, Iowa, or wherever else we play, but it does have traction where I live. Minnesota, 45 wolves killed so far in hunting season. You've got to realize, first of all, we have a group called Howling for Wolves. This is a place that if you send in $100, they will send you a little plush wolf doll, and you can join in a little tag, and then you can go around the state and feel good about yourself and say that you're protecting. But here is the sad consequences of wolf hunting. Okay, Minnesota hunters have killed at least 45 wolves since Saturday, when the state opened its second wolf season since the animals came off the endangered list. This is the first time in 20 years, maybe more, must be 30, I don't even know. I don't even remember the last time you could hunt them. Anyway, the Department of Natural Resources, that's in Minnesota, said hunters registered 30 wolves in the northwest zone and 15 wolves in the northeast zone as of Tuesday morning. Much of the northeast zone is forest and is considered prime wolf country. And it is. You see a lot of them up there. By the way, I do see them near my home, and I'm in central Minnesota. The harvest target there is 33 wolves for the early season, which runs concurrently with the firearms deer season. By the way, the howling wolf crowd, they might have crying for Bambi. I don't know if they've got a subgroup like that, but they very well could. It's the same types. Anyway, the northwest zone is more agricultural. The target there is higher at 73 wolves. By the way, that agricultural area over there is where they eat little calves. The DNR will close each zone separately if the target is reached or nearly met. The Department of Natural Resources has set a total target for the state's two-part season at 220 wolves. Now, there's a island out in Minnesota out there, and it has the wolf population is down to 8. It was high at 22. It was stranded out in Lake Superior. And it's been there for many years. It's been going up. In fact, they've been watching the wolf to the amount of deer or moose out there. And they are isolated unless they cross. If they want to run off, they can run off during the ice period. They can cross over and get to the land. It's 22 miles off the shore in northern Minnesota, out in Lake Superior. So that group of wolves is truly endangered. And sense tells you, well, leave them alone. You know, and you couldn't hunt them anyway. It was a national park. So that shows you just by themselves, there's no hunting whatsoever. What happens is they eat a certain amount of deer, and they eat themselves out of house and home, and then they got problems, and they don't know whether that's going to come back. But we got an awful lot of wolves here. These are timber wolves. These are not the coyotes that you see sniffing around your garbage if you're in southern Minnesota. You don't see them. You generally don't see them. But the wolves, the real wolves, and by the way, they will attack. They've attacked the boy here at a campground and bit him in the skull recently or early this year. And, of course, they knock off calves on a regular basis. Anyway, this is Ron reporting in for not howling for wolves, but maybe sniveling for Bambi. Maybe we're going to get a group. Send me $100 and I'll send you a little Bambi gear. That's it for now. See you later, folks.
Larry Whiteley and the Outdoor World Report are proudly brought to you by the brand new Rototail, the world's first and only plastic worm with a soft rotating spinner tail. The patented tail generates unbelievable vibration that you and the fish can actually feel, just like a spinnerbait or a crankbait. See it at rototail.com. That's rototail.com.
Early fall crappie coming up on Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Would you like to spend less time on the couch and more time in the fresh air? Would you like your kids to stare at a bobber instead of the TV? Would you gladly trade in your microwave for a Dutch oven? Then you belong at Bass Pro Shops. Every week, we offer free skills workshops to help you get started. See the store or go to BassPro.com for more information. Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.
During early fall in southern parts of the country, depending upon water temperature, crappie make a transition from deep water summer haunts into 12 to 14 feet of water and begin one of their most aggressive bites of the year because bait fish, minnows, and shad are there too. Crappie will always bite minnows, but when they're actively feeding, they will hit a slow crank spinner just as well. Because crappies are very depth-oriented fish, it's important to determine the depth they prefer, and it can change during your fishing trip. Early morning crappies are off in the upper section of the water column. As sunlight intensifies, they either go deeper or stage in the shady side of the submerged brush or tree limbs. Begin fishing a couple feet up from the bottom and raise the bait in 3-foot intervals until active fish are located. Once the depth is determined, either count down the line by lowering it in 3-foot depth sections or mark so you can return it to the exact same depth. I'm Larry Whiteley, and this is Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Why, thanks a lot, Larry. A man is known by the company he keeps. You know, we're blessed and privileged to be surrounded by some of the best people in the business. I laughingly refer to them as our usual suspects, and every one of them is in some Hall of Fame or has done something to distinguish their life in fishing. My next guest is part of that group. He's not a usual suspect, but he might as well be. He's Mark Fisher. He's a tournament angler, promoter. He's a radio talk show host. Did you know he's a radio talk show host, Lynn?
I wasn't aware of that until I read up on him.
If I knew that, I wouldn't have had you invite him.
I know, right?
I mean, what's the matter?
He's your competition.
We don't need competition. He's also the director of field promotions for Rapala BMC Group in the USA. He's an accomplished bass tournament angler, regional and national in Canada, and I'm going to talk to him about that a little bit. He's been inducted into the National Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. His program, which is Bear Facts and Fish Tales, has been on the air for over 18 years. First of all, Mark, welcome to Outdoors This Week.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, Lynn. I appreciate being on, and it's always an honor, Alex. It's been a couple years.
It has been too long. Tell me, what is Ron Linder up to these days? Is he mowing his lawn?
I tell you what, last week I fished with Al and Ron, and it's all I can say. It's always a memorable experience. You get Ron in the back of the boat. I'm stuck between he and Al's running the trolling motor, and all we do is pontificate. And Ronald solves world problems, and we catch fish. It was a blast. It was an absolute blast.
It sounds like Lynn's job every single week, actually. Listening to Ron pontificate and Al do something else.
Yeah, it's just wonderful. No, I tell you what, those guys have set the bar so doggone high, and their spirit is just, it's contagious. That's about all I can say. They haven't missed a step in all the years I've been fortunate enough to be a friend, and they attack every day just like everybody who gets a day off attacks that body of water when you go and fish.
The energy that the Linders have is amazing. How did you meet them?
I met those guys. I'm a Minnesota-raised boy, and I watched them on TV for years, and as my love of fishing, continued and grew beyond just going up to the family cabin or going on a fishing trip vacation, I met them through competitive fishing, locally, and then, they were still there on regional events, and they continue to go out and just stretch their legs, so to speak, all the way, to Rainy Lake, Lake of the Woods, and you just keep bumping into, the good characters all the time in different areas, and it's earned respect, I think, is what we call it. They just kind of find themselves.
You're director of promotions for Rapala. Tell me about that. What does that mean?
When I came here, I brought, promotional skills, being affiliated with different companies like Ranger and Mercury and Minn Kota. And Minn Kota obviously moved into Humminbird so I could still competitively fish locally. And so those skill sets brought over here and understanding marketing and I knew so many of the anglers across the country from different promotional events or competition, and so I knew a lot of the nationally competitive anglers on the bass side as well as the walleye side, and I worked to my position was to kind of shore up the pro staff and work with the media folks that we are blessed to deal with, the Ron Scheras, the Linders, that whole gamut and beyond. And it's just been a really, really great run. And through that, I've really been able to go to what I totally enjoy to do, and that's lure and product development. And
when we come back, I want to talk to you some more about that, because that's an area that's near and dear to my heart.
I know it is.
I want to know how you do it at Rapala.
All righty.
All right, folks, we'll be right back with the Mark Fisher, legendary Mark Fisher, a member of the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. I can't believe that. Holy cow. I thought Ron was the only one in the Freshwater Hall of Fame.
Hang tight. More of America's Outdoor Talk program, Outdoors This Week, after this.
Wow. Hold on to that, and that's a good one since 1984. Tight Lines with Sammy Lee.
On the last couple of programs, 2007 inductee into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, Basil Bacon, has been telling us about his spinnerbait called Awaken Bacon. Hello, this is Sammy Lee. In just a moment, Basil will tell us about the equipment he uses to fish this bait properly. But first, this message.
and the duck blind, on the deer stand. Wherever you go, take HuntMate Pro, the smartphone app for hunters of all kinds. HuntMate Pro shows you the best hunting times each day, moon phase and sunrise data, plus color weather radar and extended forecast. HuntMate Pro also gives you hunting tips and even game recipes at the touch of a finger. Take a phone photo of your trophy, HuntMate Pro puts it on the trophies page and logs the exact spot you made. Hunters in the know use HuntMate Pro. Get yours online at ConnectedLLCapps.com.
While talking with Basil Bacon about his 3/8-ounce spinnerbait called the Waken Bacon, I asked Basil to tell me what kind of rod and reel he uses with his bait.
As far as the rod is concerned, be more or less a matter of what kind of a rod you're comfortable with. Now, you do not want a real limber rod for this. I normally use about a 6 or a 6.5 footer. If I use too long a rod, I can't make those little pinpoint precision casts. You use those long rods and it's going to be overhand stuff. You want to throw this bait further than you would be pitching or something like this. You want to make the longer casts. So I personally use a 6 foot.
Well, Basil, what size fishing line do we need to use with the Waken Bacon?
The line size, there's no point in using a light line. You might as well use heavy because all the line's out of the water because the bait itself is running right on the surface. And I'll use 20-pound test unless I'm fishing some really bad stuff. If I'm throwing this thing in some real bad brush and what have you, around logs and so on, I'll go ahead and use 25 because the line size doesn't make any difference. So it's just whatever you can be comfortable with, but don't go out there and use a small line.
Why, heck no. The way this bait pulls in the water, you'd be breaking your line on every cast when you threw it. So take Basil's advice and go with a heavy line when fishing the Waken Bacon. I'll be back with more tight lines after this.
Is this the biggest fishing breakthrough in decades?
It's a revolutionary lure that is the most versatile plastic worm I've ever fished with.
Ever see a plastic worm with a tail that spins 360 degrees like a spinner? How does it do that? Be amazed at rototail.com. That's rototail.com. This new plastic worm effortlessly goes through any weeds and thick cover.
The unique action created by the spinning tail, along with the versatility that you can use this lure, it's amazing.
It puts to shame ordinary plastic worms that either do nothing or just wag back and forth. The tail calls fish from long distances and telegraphs what it's doing back to your rod.
The vibration that you feel on your rod tip is amazing. I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that a soft plastic spinner, you'd be able to feel the thumping as it comes back to you.
Makes a great gift.
I believe that the Rototail is the next generation of plastic worm.
See it work at rototail.com. That's rototail.com.
Basil Bacon will join me again next time to talk about the types of places to fish the Waken Bacon to catch the most and biggest bass this fall. So I hope you'll join us for that conversation. I'm Sammy Lee, and until next time, tight lines.
Tight Lines, brought to you by HuntMate, the ultimate hunting app for your iPhone. And by UFP, America's leading maker of brake systems for boat trailers.
For the latest in Tightline souvenirs, check us out online at tightlinesradio.com.
Thanks, Sammy Lee. Mark Fisher, my guest today, should talk to Sammy Lee. Sammy runs the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
I could put in a good word for you. You could probably get in there on your own as well. So, first of all, let me give the listeners a couple of facts about Rapala lures. I mean, Rapala are the original swimming minnow. Each Rapala features up to 12 coats of durable paint and epoxy. I didn't know that. Rapala makes about 20 million lures a year. That's unbelievable.
That's right.
There have been more record fish caught on Rapala lures than anything else. I mean, the sentence here, it just says more world fish caught on Rapala lures than anything?
That's right. It holds the world record for world records.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a run. We're pretty proud of that.
So
It really establishes a level of excellency to maintain, and it makes you want to get up in the morning and really start scratching your head a lot earlier than you think.
Right. The Rapala was invented in the 1930s. Tell me about how it was invented.
Well, basically, Laurie Rapala, as folklore goes, and truth of the matter is, he had a circle of buddies, much the same as we do here, and these guys were all fish heads by standards of the 30s, and a lot of these guys ended up making their own lures, living in small villages, and these guys would elevate themselves to another village and bring themselves and products from other villages over, and they'd tweak and modify and talk and tune just like we do today. And Lori basically broke out with the concept of carving the original bait out of pine bark, and hence, using photo affixatives by melting it down, making a hard shell case on it, modifying and shaping a lip, affixing some hooks on it, and the rest is history. It absolutely caught fish in Finland, whether it was pike or trout or perch.
And it caught fish like crazy. I think that's the bottom line. Either a lure catches fish or it doesn't catch fish. And this lure just caught fish. Your company has a lot more than Rapala as a brand right now. It's got VMC hooks. It's got trolling motors. How do you do product development? I mean, where do you start?
What I honestly use for a rule of thumb, Alex, is being exposed to different bodies of water, being exposed to different fisheries, different species of fish, fresh and saltwater. I use for kind of a rule of thumb is if the tackle box of the world is opened, and you open up that hip roof tackle box, and in there is a compartment that doesn't have a Rapala lure in it, then we need to go to work to occupy that compartment. And you become a student of lures, and you understand what makes certain lures work, whether it's a time of year or a specific species, and you just go and do your homework and talk to anglers that are skilled anglers that, if it's bass, it's Bernie Schultz, and it's a host of a lot of different anglers with a lot of input, and you start sorting out what are the key elements and the key points, and then you decide, does it fit in other parts of the world as well, and you work with your counterparts and the design team we have in Finland, and the end result, hopefully, is extremely successful, as we've been lucky to share.
So is Rapala still headquartered in Finland, or is it in the USA now?
It is Finland, and we still manufacture all Rapala-branded lures in Finland.
Really?
That maintains today.
So how did you go from the Rapala, which we all know and love? I mean, I remember when you guys first went to the Shad Rap back in the 1970s. Correct. It was a big step for Rapala.
The fascinating part about it is the Shad Rap gained some extreme popularities where it was actually rented. They couldn't manufacture enough lures to keep up the speed. And that story continues today, where people have their eyes set on the next latest and greatest. And through the years, up to date, we've had great successes with families like the X-Rap family that started out as one particular jerk bait, which became a slash bait, more aggressive action, and opened up the door for a whole host of other baits in that category. We've done gliding baits for predator fish like pike and muskie and barramundi in Australia.
Right.
On the bass side of things, we had a grand slam with the DT series of crankbait.
You had a grand slam with Mike Iaconelli, and how did you do that? What prompted you to go to Mike and say, hey, try Rapala?
It's because he grew up fishing Rapalas. In there, burned the fire that Mike's a great guy. He is a fisherman's fisherman at heart, an excitable fisherman's fisherman, but he truly is.
You don't say. I don't think he's excitable at all. Why would you talk that way about him? Let's take a break right now, because I want to talk to you for a couple of hours, but we just don't have the time.
Sure.
Come on back for another segment, and we'll finish it up. We'll have about 6.5 minutes to do it, and there's so many things I'm going to have to talk to you about. I have to get them all in the 6.5 minutes. So come back,
I'm ready.
Come back, folks. We'll be right back with the Mark Fisher.
Coast to coast, this is Outdoors This Week with Alex Langer.
Bigger the better.
The Wade Bowen Report is brought to you by the original Alex Langer's Flying Lure. Hey, that's my lure! Hundreds of millions have been sold on TV worldwide for over 2 decades. It fishes itself and swims away from you on its own. Catches nearly every game fish that's ever swam. See it at flyinglure.com. That's flyinglure.com.
Having good trigger control is one of the main secrets to accuracy with a handgun. Whether you're on the range or out hunting, how you pull the trigger goes a long way in determining whether or not you'll hit your target. Jerking, or what's known as slapping the trigger, is a no-no. A smooth, steady trigger pull is what you're after. I'm Wade Bourne, and this is Wired to Hunt Radio. In a minute, Paul Pluff of Smith & Wesson describes a shooting drill to develop good trigger control.
Stay with us. Wade will be right back.
Advanced by design and ahead by a mile, the new M&P 10 from Smith & Wesson is the latest modern sporting rifle to bear the name of this legendary firearms manufacturer. Easy to accessorize and hard to put down, the M&P 10 is the perfect companion for this year's hunting season. So go to your local Smith & Wesson dealer or visit the company's website, smith-wesson.com. See for yourself why so many hunters and shooters have put their trust in the M&P name.
Planning to head outdoors today? The National Shooting Sports Foundation reminds you to check the fire danger levels in your area. Whether target shooting, camping, or even parking a car with a hot exhaust, remember to take precautions. If you're going shooting in dry conditions, minimize the possible risk of fire by not using steel-jacketed or steel core ammunition, tracer rounds, or exploding targets. As we know, wildfires have many possible causes. Don't be one of them.
This is Wired to Hunt Radio.
Paul Pluff of Smith & Wesson is a certified instructor who teaches proper shooting techniques and clinics all around the country. Recently, we talked about accuracy with a handgun. Paul said many shooters make the mistake of yanking or slapping the trigger. Then he described a drill he uses to teach his students the proper technique for a slow, steady trigger pull.
My favorite thing to do with somebody who is having a hard time keeping the rounds in the bullseye is I'll ask them to hold the gun up and focus on the sights and not think about the trigger. And I walk up behind them and I squeeze their shoulder. And I said, all I want you to do is, as I'm squeezing your shoulder, put the same amount of slow pressure on that trigger. And every time I do that, they never really know when the gun's going to go off because their focus is 100% on the sights. Okay, 100% on the sights. If you keep your focus on the sights and you do a slow, steady trigger squeeze, you're going to hit dead center each and every time. And that's exactly what happens when I go through that exercise with people. So it's very important, that even, smooth, and you'll be surprised. It may seem like it's taking forever, but if you have a nice, even, smooth trigger pull and not slapping at it, it happens fairly quick. It really does. A lot quicker than people think. Just in your mind, you think it's taking forever, so you want to slap at it. Trigger control is very important.
That's Paul Pluff with a simple but important tip for greater accuracy when shooting a handgun. And that's also today's Wired to Hunt Radio. I'm Wade Bourne saying thanks for listening and get outside.
Thanks, Wade. We are outside with the legendary Mark Fisher. And Mark is the promotions director for Rapala USA. And Rapala is sold in 140 countries around the world. Now, I read that. I just looked up how many countries there were in the world on my iPhone. And it's 196. So you're in most of the countries in the world.
Amazing. It truly is amazing.
In 1962, you had a major breakthrough in the USA when Life magazine published an article on Rapala. How did that put Rapala on the map?
It was an interesting story, Alex. And quickly, what happened was on a handshake, Ron Weber and Ray Ostrom conducted an agreement with the Rapala family, and which was comprised of four sons and Lori Rapala, the father. And on a handshake, they placed orders. The orders continued to grow. They built a factory. They added on to the factory. They built all their own equipment. And currently, the site of our existing factory is on the original site. And it's just a fascinating story. And through that time, it was business conducted with a lot of trust,
right,
with people that had a lot of similarities.
Right. Right.
And it was interesting, and the similarity was fishing.
Yeah. They did business on a handshake, and what happened since then? Did Rapala USA buy out the interest of the Rapala family or not?
Well, there were some transitions over a long period of time where the company grew, the family wanted to sell out, the partners here bought it, then the partners sold back to some partners and with some Rapala family members. And today we are, held there with ownership, from groups over in Europe, as well as comprised of a strong group from the Villard families, which is VMC fishing books.
Right. I went to the Rapala site, and it's got an investor section, so I guess they're doing okay.
It's gone from a handshake to a huge corporation.
Right.
Yes, it is.
Tell me again about your development philosophy. How do you even think of a new lure?
Well, it honestly, it derives out of need. And as we speak right now, I'm planning to get on a plane and hook up with Bernie Schultz down in Florida Sunday, and we're working on another project. I have some ideas in mind. We have a category we need to expand upon, and it has to do with cold water fishing, and Bernie's expertise in shallow water and cold water situations will lend itself, will drive a lot of information based on a wish list that we've already created, and then use Bernie for a sounding board, as well as some of the other anglers that will get involved in this project. And it's just understanding of fishing, fisheries, and where to get started.
Bernie's a great guy. He's been on the show quite a bit. When you see Bernie, tell him to watch his P's and Q's, all right?
There you go. Not a problem, Alex.
We only have a few minutes to wrap up this interview, but what are the things you're excited about with Rapala?
What's extremely exciting right now is we came out with a new list of baits last year called the Scatter Wraps.
Yep.
And Scatter Wraps, right out of the blocks, we released a whole family based on a crankbait, a shad shape, a countdown, and a minnow shape. And basically, it's a different lip than appears on crankbaits or jerk baits today, and it gives an erratic action where the bait actually loses track and corrects itself and comes back on track and corrects itself and goes back and forth and back and forth.
Mark, that's a deadly action.
It is.
That's maybe the deadliest action if you're a fisherman that you can think of,
Exactly. And you know lures well, Alex, that if you can get something to get a little bit of a hiccup or a kick or a kick out, anything that disrupts that normal flow of a bait moving through the water sometimes is an extreme alluring attraction.
Right.
Wiggle warts deliver that, and many other baits have done that to a degree, but this one is just phenomenal, and it's working extremely well for us. And so we're expanding that family. In the Storm lineup, we have a new lineup of baits called the Arashis.
Yep.
And the Arashis are very interesting because it's delved into a whole new breakthrough where Japanese designers that we have worked on a deal coming up with a 3-foot and a 5-foot square lip, and that is basically a computer circuit board lip, and has a line tie that allows you to knock the bait out of tune, and it will self-tune itself by moving freely on a metal system off out of the body.
Mark, we're going to have you back. I hear the music playing. We got to go.
That's okay.
Thanks.
That's all right, Alex. A pleasure, buddy.
Thanks
you
for
so much.
any time that another Hall of Famer can join us besides Ron. I'm all for it.
All right, take care, Alex.
All right, thanks a lot, Mark. And folks, thanks for being with us. We'll be with you next time again on Outdoors This Week. Bye-bye.